Before the rise of Umar bin Khattab, before he ruled an empire stretching across 3 continents, he was just a name in the sand of ancient Mecca. But that name would soon shape history in the ways the world never expected. Just 2 years after becoming the first Khalifa, Hazrat Abu Bakr passed away. But before leaving this world, he made one thing absolutely clear to the Muslim Ummah, who their next leader would be, Umar bin Khattab, a name that would echo across the sands of Arabia and far beyond. Today, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, followed by nearly 2 billion people. There is not a single moment on earth when the call to prayer, the Azan, is not being heard in some corner of the globe. And in shaping this global legacy of Islam, Hazrat Umar played a revolutionary role. In just a few years under Umar's rule, the Islamic empire exploded in size. It reached further than even the empires of Alexander the Great or pharaohs of Egypt. He didn't inherit an empire, he built it, brick by brick, battle by battle, reform by reform. But to understand the man, we must understand the world he was born in. The city of Mecca. Mecca wasn't just a city, it was a tribal battlefield of influence. One tribe ruled over it for centuries, the Quraysh. Over time, the Quraysh became so large that it splintered into clans, each competing for power, wealth, and honor. But to avoid war among themselves, they gave each clan its own responsibility. 3 clans stood at the top of this power pyramids. First, Banu Hashim, the clan of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were the spiritual guardians of the Kaaba, the holiest sites in Arabia. They held religious authority not through wealth but through service to the pilgrims. Second, Banu Umayyah, the banker of the desert. They didn't care much for religion. Their power came from gold, trade caravan, and an influence in Makkah booming economy. And then came Banu Adi, the clan of Umar. They weren't the richest nor the most spiritually revered, but they were respected, known for their diplomacy and judgment. They often settled dispute between clans. They were peacemakers, the wise negotiator, and Umar would one day prove to be the most powerful among them. But before we explore his reign as Khalifa, before we witness the law he passed, the empire he shook, and the justice he became known for, we must understand the man behind the title. Who was Umar bin Khattab? What kind of fire burned within him before Islam? And what force was powerful enough to transform one of Islam's fiercest enemies into one of its greatest champions? Umar bin Khattab didn't begin his journey as a Muslim hero. In fact, he was once amongst the fiercest enemies of Islam. Born into the noble tribe of Banu Adi from the Quraysh, Umar was respected for his intelligence, strength, eloquence, and unshakable tribe loyalty. As a young man, he was skilled orator and expert in Arab genealogy, even serving as an ambassador for Quraysh in tribal affairs. He was the official ambassador and spokesperson of the Quraysh. Whenever there was a tribal conflict or whenever the Quraysh needed someone to represent their strength and pride, it was Umar who stood at the front. His powerful voice echoed in gathering, his sharp mind shaped public opinion, and his loyalty to the old tradition made him one of Islam's fiercest enemies. And that's why when he heard that Prophet Muhammad calling people towards one God and challenging the very structure of Quraysh society, he took it as a personal threat. Umar saw it not as a religion but as a rebellion. He believed Muhammad was tearing apart the fabric of society, dividing families and insulting the gods of their ancestors. Fueled by rage, sword in hand, Umar set out to kill the Prophet Muhammad. But Allah had written a different fate. Along the way, a man intercepted him and whispered a truth that shocked him. Your own sister and her husband have accepted Islam. Fuming, Umar stormed to their home. From outside, he heard the recitation of the Quran, the powerful word of Surah Taha. He burst in and struck his sister in fury, only to see her bloodied face respond not with fear but faith. We are Muslims, she said. Do whatever you wish. We will not leave this path. Her courage shattered, his pride humbled. Umar asked to read the verses. After purifying himself, he held the scroll and read, Indeed, I am Allah. There is no deity except me. So worship me and establish prayer for for my remembrance. The words pierced his heart like a divine lightning bolt. This fire of ignorance extinguished, replaced by the light of faith. The man who had set out to murder the Prophet now raced to find him, not with a weapon but with a trembling heart. At Darul Arqam, the Muslim feared his approach. But the Prophet ﷺ opened the door. Umar entered and declared, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. That very moment changed history. Islam had gained not just a follower but a fortress. From then on, Muslims prayed publicly. Omar and Hamza led the believers to the Kaaba with heads held high. No longer did the Ummah live in shadows. With Umar, they walk in strength. Before Umar bin Khattab accepted Islam, the believers lived in fear and silence. Islam was quietly spreading, but Muslims prayed in secrets. But the moment Umar bin Khattab accepted Islam, the winds of Makkah shifted. No longer was he the enemy of the Prophet. He was now his sword, his shield, his lion. But Umar didn't hide in the shadows. Now his faith was not a secret. It was a declaration of war against every enemy of truth. Umar marched straight to the doorstep of the Quraysh chieftain. He went to Abu Jahl, the pharaoh of this Ummah, and knocked with force. Abu Jahl, still unaware of the thunder that approached, opened the door. Umar looked him in the eye and said with fire in his voice, I have accepted the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do whatever you can. Hazrat Umar participated in battles with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, battles Badr, Uhud, Khandaq, Khaybar, Hunain, Tabuk. In all battle he was present with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Years passed. The Prophet ﷺ returned to his Lord, and Abu Bakr was chosen as the first Caliph. In those difficult days, Umar stood beside him, not just as a friend but at his right hand. His advice, leadership and resolve helped hold the fragile Ummah together. When Abu Bakr's final days arrived, he saw the need for strong, principled leadership after him. Though many companions feared Umar's strictness, Abu Bakr saw beyond it. He said, his harshness was because of I was gentle, but when he becomes a leader, he will become kinder. And if Allah asks me who I choose as Khalifa, I will say I choose the best of your people. Abu Bakr did not leave the decision to the public or a shura because he feared disunity during such a sensitive time. Instead, he nominated Umar bin Khattab himself after thorough consultation. He even had Uthman bin Affan write a formal letter declaring the nomination. Then Abu Bakr asked the public to come and listen to his choice. He announced publicly in the mosque that he had chosen Umar as his successor. The people, including the key companion, gave their pledge of alliance to Umar. After Abu Bakr passed away, Umar bin Khattab officially became the second Khalifa of the Muslims. Despite the pledge of loyalty from the majority, Umar was more feared than loved. His first challenge to win the trust of the people and the respect of the influential tribes, especially the Prophet's own clan, Banu Hashim. Umar was no ordinary speaker, a powerful orator. He used his voice to unify the people and calm the storm of doubts. To honor the Banu Hashim, he returned disputed lands in Khaybar to Ali's family. He upheld Abu Bakr's ruling on Fadl, keeping it as a public property but ensured justice and fairness. His reputation grew. After the Rida Wars, thousands of prisoners from rebellious tribes had been enslaved. Umar issued a general amnesty ordering their immediate release, a bold and popular move that won him support among the tribes. Hazrat Umar then made one shocking decision. Despite Khalid bin Walid's military genius and battlefield victories, Umar removed him from supreme command. Why? Because leadership in Islam wasn't about fame, it was about balance, humility and obedience to Allah. Though Khalid bin Walid was undefeated in battle and celebrated for his brilliance in military strategy, Caliph Umar removed him from his position as commander during the Syrian campaign. The reason was not personal. Umar deeply respected Khalid's abilities. However, he feared that the Muslim masses had started attributing victory to Khalid instead of Allah. Umar believed that such reliance on a single individual could distort the Islamic principle that victory comes only from Allah. To preserve this core belief and avoid the development of hero worship in the growing Muslim community, Umar quietly replaced Khalid with Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah. Without publicly humiliating Khalid, remarkably, Khalid accepted the decision with humility and continued to serve under Abu Ubaidah without protest, providing his true dedication to Islam and not personal glory. Under Umar, the Caliphate wasn't just expanding, it was organizing. He established a unitary state, dividing the empire into provinces like Medina, Makkah, Basra, Kufa, Syria, Egypt, and Khorasan. Hazrat Umar bin Khattab showed great wisdom and planning in managing the fast-growing Islamic empire. He knew that winning battle was not enough. An empire also needs strong system, fairness, and discipline to survive. So he divided the empire into provinces and appointed governors called walis, who were chosen not because of their tribe, but because they were honest, capable, and poised. Umar gave each governor clear written instruction and personally explained their duties. To stop corruption, he fixed their salaries, stopped them from doing business, and kept a close check on their work. People were allowed to complain about any governor without any fear, and Umar would secretly check if the complaints were true. His smart leadership created a balanced, strong control from the center, but also freedom for local leaders to act justly. Because of this careful planning and honest administrators, the message of Islam and justice spread to the furthest area. His way of ruling is still remembered today as one of the best examples of Islamic leadership. Hazrat Umar quietly established a secret intelligence network across the provinces of the Islamic Empire. This network consisted of trusted individuals who reported directly to him about the behavior of governors, judges, military commanders, and even public sentiments. These agents operated discreetly and ensured that Umar was informed of any corruption, injustice, or misuse of power, often before the matter became public. This intelligence system was not for political control, but for accountability and transparency. If any official, no matter how powerful, deviated from justice or Islamic ethics, Umar acted strictly. Though he ensured that the Islamic State remained true to its moral foundation. It was this intelligence that helped him run an empire that stretched from Egypt to Persia with fairness, discipline, and fear of Allah. One of Hazrat Umar Rajitala's most important achievement was building a proper justice system for the Islamic State. He knew that justice is the backbone of any strong and fair society, so he set up independent courts and appointed honest and knowledgeable judges, known as Qadis, in different provinces. These judges were not allowed to do any other job, so they could focus only on justice and avoid any conflict of interest. Hazrat Umar made sure that the judges were experts in the Islamic law, truthful and brave enough to give fair decision, even if it was against powerful people. He personally trained and guided them to make sure all judgments were consistent. Judges were also not allowed to accept gift or socialize with rich or influential people, so they could remain fair and neutral. One of the greatest Qadis during Umar's time was Hazrat Ali Rizqallah Anha, known for his deep knowledge and fairness. Umar also introduced a system to record legal cases and decisions so future judges could refer to them. He believed that the law should be equal for everyone, rich or poor, Muslim or non-Muslim. Even the Khalifa himself could be taken to the court, and Umar accepted that without hesitation. His efforts created a strong justice system that influenced Islamic rule for centuries. Today, Umar is still remembered as a symbol of fairness and justice. Hazrat Umar justice system wasn't just about rules. It was about building a society where everyone was treated fairly, no matter their status. His legacy of honesty, fairness, and fearless leadership still inspires people today. In the next vlog, we will take you straight to the battlefield. The first major war. Umar bin Khattab became the second Khalifa of Muslim at one of the most critical moments in history. At that very time, the young state of Medina, barely a few years old, was facing not one but two superpowers, the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire. Number 1, Roman Empire, which had ruled as the world's greatest power for over a 10th century periods. Number 2, Persian Empire. They had dominated as the second great power for nearly 8 centuries, and now both superpowers were at war with Muslim, the young state of Medina. When Umar assumed leadership, one Muslim army under Khalid bin Walid was battling the Romans, while another smaller force faced the Persians. Umar's greater concern was the Persian front, for it lacked a commander of Khalid's caliber. Realizing the strategic risk, Umar began rallying a new army to reinforce the Muslim in Persia. But here came a shocking problem. From the pulpit of Masjid al-Nabi, Umar's voice rang out like a war horn. O people, rise for the cause of Allah. Who will stand against the fire of Kisra? But to his shock, silence. Not a single man moved. Not because they feared that. These were warriors seasoned by years of battle, but because their hearts clung to one man's name, Khalid bin Walid. Without him, they thought victory was impossible. Umar's eyes narrowed. This was more dangerous than any sword. He realized Muslims had begun placing their trust in Khalid rather than Allah. 3 days passed. Umar returned to the mosque, his voice now a thunderclap. By Allah, whoever believes victory lies with Khalid alone has mistaken the truth. Allah grants victory to whom He wills. Khalid is but a servant of Allah. His words struck like an arrow. A man named Abu Bakr stood up. "Ey Amirul Mu'mineen, I will go. I will fight in the path of Allah." It was the spark the crowd needed. Men began to rise one after another until 1,000 stood ready. Umar placed the banner in Abu Bakr's hand. Abu Bakr was a normal person. He was not a Sahabi. Under Abu Bakr's leadership, they rode east towards an empire that had stood unbroken for 800 years. But while these armies marched into Persian Empire, far to the north in the lands of the Romans, Khalid bin Walid was delivering a decisive blow. Khalid's eyes were set on one prize, Damascus, Damascus. With precision and speed, he gathered his army, tightened their ranks, and marched north toward the great Roman stronghold, Damascus. Before the siege of Damascus, the reason Hazrat Umar bin Khattab prioritized it as one of the first major targets was both strategic and symbolic. It wasn't just about conquering a city. It was about opening the gateway to the rest of Syria and the Byzantine-controlled region. There were several key reasons behind this decision. Number 1. Damascus was like the control tower of Byzantine Syria. It sat at a key junction of trade and military routes between Arabia, Palestine, and Mediterranean coast. Whoever controlled Damascus could easily move armies north or south to Jerusalem. Number 2. Byzantine stronghold. It was one of the strongest Byzantine garrisons in Syria, meaning if Muslims ignore it, it could be used as a base to launch counterattacks on Muslim positions in the newly captured areas like Busra. Number 3. Economic hub. Damascus was a wealthy trade center famous for its market, skilled craftsmen, and fertile agricultural lands nearby. Controlling it meant the Muslim could financially sustain future campaigns. Number 4. Psychological impact. Taking Damascus early would break the morale of the Byzantine troops in the rest of Syria. It was like removing the keystone of a bridge. The rest of the structure would be weakened. Number 5. Securing supply lines. Umar and his commanders knew that if they pushed deeper into Syria without neutralizing Damascus, their near supply lines would also be at risk. Number 6. Winter shelter for the army. Damascus had resources, fortification, and shelter which were valuable for Muslim armies moving north, where winter conditions could be harsher. So, Hazrat Umar targeted Damascus first because it was the heart of Syria. Once Damascus fell, the Muslim armies could move freely towards Homs, Amasa, Aleppo, etc. without worrying about a powerful Byzantine force at their back. With the blessing of Caliphs, Khalid bin Walid prepared for one of the most important campaigns of the early Muslim conquest. Khalid led his forces north through the scorching desert. Days blurred into night under the relentless sun, but his army moved like a single creature, sustained by faith and the promise of victory. Khalid was a great commander. He never lost any battle in his entire career. Khalid's mind worked like a chess master, calculating every move. He knew Damascus would be heavily fortified, high walls, strong gates, and a garrison of elite Byzantine troops under the command of Thomas, the emperor's own relative. By late spring, the Muslim forces surrounded Damascus, cutting off all supply lines. The siege began with the relentless pressure. Archer rained arrows from a distance, while engineers constructed makeshift siege equipment. Khalid himself led daring night raid to test the city weakness, striking and vanishing before the Byzantines could regroup. Inside Damascus, fear spread like wildfire. The people whispered about the Muslims encamped outside their gates. Meanwhile, far to the east in Persia, the 1,000 soldiers sent by Hazrat Umar reached the Muslims' army under Abu Ubaid's leadership in Persia. Abu Ubaid looked across the Euphrates and saw the Muslim army on one side and the massive Persian army on the other side. Before this day, the Muslim had never crossed a bridge. There was a bridge between two armies which are separating both armies, because doing so meant putting themselves in a trap with no easy retreat. The Muslim army doesn't want to cross the bridge, but Abu Ubaid made the fateful decision that would change the course of the battle. He ordered the Muslim army to cross the bridge and meet the Persian army after the bridge. In the end, the Muslim army, about 9,000, crossed the river and the battle began. When Abu Ubaid ordered his army to charge the Persian army, the Muslim encountered something they had never seen before. War elephant. The sight terrified many of the soldiers. Instead of advancing, some began to retreat in fear. Sensing the panic, the Persian general ordered a full-scale attack. The Persians struck fiercely and many Muslims were murdered. One of the elements even knocked Abu Ubaid from his horse, then stepped on his chest, crushing him to death. This was the first time in history that a Muslim commander was murdered in battle. When the Muslim soldiers saw their leader fell, their morale collapsed and they began to withdraw towards the bridge. But upon reaching it, they discovered it had been destroyed either by the Persian or some accounts suggest by a Muslim on Abu Ubaid's earlier order to prevent retreat. With no way to escape, many Muslims leaped into the river in desperation. At this moment, another commander, Musanna, fought with great courage against the Persian and ordered the Muslims to repair the bridge. Thanks to his bravery and leadership, around 3,000 Muslims managed to cross back to safety. Out of roughly 9,000 Muslim soldiers, about 6,000 were murdered, including Abu Ubaid himself, who was killed by an elephant in battle. This was one of the rare but significant defeats for the Muslim in the early conquests. Back at the wall of Damascus, Khalid shifted his tactics. Knowing the Byzantine expected a frontal assault, he placed his army at the eastern gate while secretly preparing his elite army for a surprise strike at the western side. One moonless night, Khalid's horsemen rode silently along hidden paths guided by Arab local allies who knew the terrain. Before dawn, they breached the defenses. Khalid and his army went secretly inside and opened the gates for the Muslim army. Khalid bin Walid had positioned his finest general at every main gate of the city, one of whom was Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah. A large portion of the army had already entered the fortress from the one side and began capturing the eastern section. However, the city's Roman commander was stationed on the opposite side. When he realized that he had no other option left, that the Muslim had breached the fortress and would soon take the entire city, he quickly sent a letter to Abu Ubaidah, one of the senior Muslim commanders, stating, "I am ready to surrender the city to the Muslim, but on one condition: no spoils of war, male ghanimat, will be taken." At this time, Abu Ubaidah was unaware that Khalid bin Walid and his soldier were just about to fully conquer Damascus by force. Believing it to be the best course to avoid further bloodshed, he accepted the Roman general's surrender on those terms. A short while later, Khalid bin Walid learned of Abu Ubaidah's decision. If Khalid had wished, he could have rejected the agreement and taken Damascus by the sword, claiming all the war spoils. But in a remarkable show of unity and discipline, Khalid honored Abu Ubaidah's agreement and ordered his troop to pull back. And so Damascus, the powerful city of the region at that time, came under the control of Khalifa Hazrat Umar, not through plunder, but through honor and a bending promise. Khalid led the Muslim army to another victory, but the forces in Persia suffered a bad defeat. In Medina, the air was thick with anticipation. Messengers rode in from all corners of the expanding Caliphate. One rider, covered in dust from the long road, burst into the city with a cry, Damascus has fallen, the jewel of Syria. The mighty stronghold Byzantine power had surrendered to the Muslims under Khalid bin Walid's masterful command. The street of Medina buzzed with celebration. People embraced, praising Allah, their voices echoing with joy. There was no ordinary city. Damascus was a gateway uprise that opened the path to all of Syria. But just as the people began to settle, another rider arrived, this one with a face as pale as the desert moon. His words cut through the joy like a blade. We have lost in Persia. The army sent eastward facing the powerful Persian army had suffered a setback. It was a bitter reminder that while one front brought glory, another demanded sacrifice. In that moment, Khalifa Umar stood firm. His gaze shifted between the two messengers, one bringing news of victory, the other of loss. Victory in Damascus proved the strength of their faith and strategy, but the defeat in Persia was a warning. The path ahead would be a testing of patience. Many people began to believe, almost superstitiously, that Muslims couldn't win wars without Khalid. This deepened the public admiration and reliance on him, turning his name into a kind of battle guarantee in the minds of the people. This was very alarming for Khalifa Umar. And so, the dust of Damascus settled, the city had fallen, the gate had opened, and the banner of Islam flew high over one of the greatest strongholds Byzantine. But amid the celebration, whisper began to spread that the Rashidun Khilafat might its victories. Its unstoppable charge was because of one man, Khalid bin Walid, the sword of Allah. The commander who had never tasted defeat. For the soldier, it was a source of pride, but for the politics of Medina, it was becoming a storm. What happened next would shake the Muslim army to its core. The removal of Khalid right before the decisive battle in history, Yarmouk. In the next episode, you will witness how Khalid was removed, why he was removed, and the entire history of the Battle of Yarmouk. Hazrat Khalid bin Walid, the sword of Allah, undefeated in battle, a name that could make empires tremble. His strategies shattered armies. His presence on the battlefield turned fear into victory. And yet, on the eve of one of the greatest battles in Islamic history, the Khalifa in Medina sent an order that shook the Muslim army to its core. Khalid was to be removed as commander-in-chief. It was the year 636. The decision spread through the camp like wildfire. Soldiers were stunned. Some whispered in disbelief. Others worried aloud. Why now? Why remove the man who had never known defeat? The answer lays in the clash of the leadership version. Hazrat Umar bin Khattab believed in a centralized government, a chain of command where every major decision came from the Khalifa himself. But Khalid, forged in the chaos of battle, believed speed and independence were the lifeblood of victory. If the army had to wait for approval from Medina, he feared that the enemy would always strike first. He also feared something far deeper. He feared the people were beginning to trust in Khalid's sword more than in Allah's will. Victory could never be tied to one man, it belonged only to God. Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, famed to his piety humility, was appointed in Khalid's place. Khalid was not removed from the army, he was just removed as commander-in-chief. He was just downgraded and Abu Ubaidah replaced him as a commander. And here came the moment that revealed the true greatness of Khalid. No protest, no bitterness. He bowed his head, accepted the decision, and swore loyalty to Abu Ubaidah without hesitation. Even stripped of command, Khalid fought on with same fire, proving that his sword served not his pride but his faith. Hazrat Umar gathered the people in the Masjid an-Nabi. His voice was firm yet measured as he addressed them. By Allah, I did not remove Khalid because of anger or betrayal, nor because I doubted his skills. I removed him because people have begun to rely on him more than Allah. Victory comes from the Lord of the heaven, not from the strength of any man. I want the Ummah to know that the leadership and victory are gifts from Allah alone. So Umar appointed Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah And despite the political decision, the bond between Umar and Khalid remained strong. There was no bitterness, no enmity. In fact, their respect for one another grew so deep that Hazrat Umar later married Khalid's sister, a gesture that showed the unity of their hearts and the brotherhood that no change in rank could ever break. Back to the Muslim army. Before the Battle of Yarmouk, the Muslim armies under the Abu Ubaidah were pressing deep into Byzantine Syria. One of their key targets was Amasa, a vital Byzantine stronghold north of Damascus. The city was surrounded, its gates shut, and its defender determined to hold out. Muslim forces, discipline and swift cut off all supply routes, tightening the siege with each passing day. Inside the wall, the Byzantine soldiers and local inhabitants began to feel the pinch of hunger and fear as the black banner of Islam stood unshaken beyond the gates. After a period of relentless pressure and negotiation, Amasa surrendered to the Muslims, agreeing to pay the jizya in exchange for peace and protection. The victory brought not just a strategic city under Muslim control, but also secured the northern approaches of Syria. However, this triumph was short-lived. Soon after, urgent intelligence reached the Muslim commander. Emperor Heraclius was not willing to lose Syria without a final crushing blow. In the north, he began gathering one of the largest armies the Byzantine had ever assembled. Report speaks of more than 2 lakh troops, reinforced by Christian Arab tribes and elite units from Armenia and Anatolia. But this time the threat was even greater. The long war between Byzantines and the Persians had ended, and Heraclius had sealed peace through a political marriage. His daughter was wed to the Persian king's son. With this union, the two old enemies stood united in one cause: to destroy the rising Muslim power. While the Persians moved to press the Muslims in Iraq, Heraclius prepared to crush them in Syria. His plan was simple but deadly: trap the Muslim forces deep in enemy territory and wipe them out in a single decisive strike. Abu Ubaidah called his journal. The question was not if the Byzantine would come, it was where to meet them. And then came the order from Medina. Khalifa Umar bin Khattab was steady yet sharp. Do not let the enemy trap you between themselves and their reinforcements. Choose a battlefield where your backs are to the land of the Arab, so you may fall back if Allah wills. Abu Ubaidah made the difficult decision: cancel the peace agreements temporarily with the cities including Amasa and Damascus, returning the jizya to the people, saying, "We are returning your tax because we can no longer protect you. You are free to defend yourselves." Withdraw the Muslim garrison from the cities and march south to the plain near the Yarmouk river, where the terrain was open and better for army maneuvers. But why Abu Ubaidah and Khalid choose Yarmouk? Khalid chose the Yarmouk river area for several reasons. It was close to Muslim-controlled Arabia, allowing reinforcements if needed. The wide open ground was perfect for Khalid's army tactics. The river and surrounding ravines provided natural defense against encirclement. By concentrating their forces here, the Muslim could meet the Byzantine mega army in one decisive showdown rather than being destroyed in separate city sieges. The plains of Yarmouk stretched wide under a relentless sun. On one side stood the Byzantine host, a sea of armor and banners, 200,000 strong army. On the other, just 30,000 Muslims stood firm, their line disciplined, their resolve unshaken. Days passed, yet no sword was raised, no arrow was loosed. From the Roman camps at night came the sound of music, laughter and drunken feast, as if these men had not come to fight at all. But Khalid bin Walid watched carefully. He knew warriors did not march from the end of empire to drink wine under the stars. Something was being planned. Then, one day, a messenger emerged from the Roman lines. He came to Abu Ubaidah, the Muslim commander, saying, "We do not wish for bloodshed. Send us your best general so we may discuss terms." Abu Ubaidah turned to the only man fit for such a meeting, Khalid bin Walid. Khalid rode into the Roman camp where their general had arranged his soldiers in perfect formations, shields gleaming spear high, hoping to strike fear into Muslim envoy. But Khalid's gaze never faltered. Their Roman journal began his speech praising Jesus Christ, then his emperor Heraclius, the most powerful ruler in all the world. Khalid let him speak, but when the flattery grew excessive, he cuts in. I agree, your emperor may be greater than our Khalifa in worldly terms, but the man we follow is no king at all. He is a Khalifa. The day the love of kingship enter his heart, we will remove him. Even here in our army, the son of the Khalifa fight as a common soldier. The Roman offered gold titles and safety if the Muslim withdrew. Khalid refused every offer. Meeting only confirmed Khalid's suspicion. The Roman was telling for time. He had already guessed the truth. The Byzantines and Persian, once better enemy, were now bound by marriage. Heraclius' daughter to Persian prince. Their army were coordinating, planning to strike Muslim in the Syria and Iraq at the same time. Khalid sent a warning letter to Khalifa Umar in Medina, explaining the trap. Umar acted immediately, ordering Muslim forces in Persia to make peace temporarily, slowing the Persian advance. At the same time, he gathered 6,000 fresh troops and sent them racing to Yarmouk. They did not arrive all at once. Each day, around 1,000 fresh warriors joined the camp, their arrival greeted with shouts of Allahu Akbar. The Muslim army, once 30,000, grew stronger with every sunrise. The Byzantines noticed, and their window of advantage began to close. When the final group of reinforcements arrived, Abu Ubaidah called a council of his commander. In a moment of humility, he said, "For this battle, we must have the sharpest mind in command. I suggest Khalid leads us, while I fight among you as a soldier." All agreed. Abu Ubaidah stepped down from the commander's position. Khalid took the helm, and the army of Islam braced itself. The long wait was over. Yarmouk was about to erupt. It was a tactical decision within the Khalifa's permission, for Abu Ubaidah still remained the overall chief. But for Yarmouk field's battle, Khalid would lead. But wait, let's go back. Why did the Khalifa not joining the war? The question echoed in the minds of many. In Medina, a companion asked Umar bin Khattab directly. The Khalifa, his face calm yet firm, replied, "If I leave Medina, who will guard the heart of this Ummah? The Persian press us from the east, the Byzantine from the west, and the tribes of Arabia watch for any weakness. A leader's duty is not only to fight, but to ensure the safety of his people everywhere. If I go to Yarmouk and fall, the enemy will not only take a battlefield, they may take the very soul of our state." He then turned to his general's letter on the table. "Allah has given us men like Abu Ubaidah and Khalid. They are our sword. I am the shield. A sword can strike far, but only if the shield strong holds." And so Umar remained in Medina, commanding, reinforcing, and ensuring no enemy could threaten the Muslim heartland, while his chosen general prepared to carve history on the plains of Yarmouk. Back to the battlefield. Day 1. The first morning of battle came with a sound of drums, the marching of thousands of soldiers, and the loud calls of commander. The Byzantine army moved forward confidently, their line stretching across the valley. Muslim scouts quickly returned to Khalid bin Walid, warning him that a large army force was hiding on the eastern ridge, ready to strike. Khalid acted fast. He ordered his army to attack first, hoping to disrupt the enemy hidden forces before they could move. As the sun climbed higher, small battle broke out across the field. The Byzantine pushed forward in probing attack, but Khalid's fast-moving army hit their sides and forced them back. By sunset, there was no clear victory for either side. Both armies were testing each other's strength. The casualties were not heavy, but Khalid made an important observation. The Byzantine army was slow to regroup, and their supply line was stretching thin. Day 2. The next morning, the Byzantine commander focused their attack on Muslim right flank, led by Amr bin As. Their goal was to break this side and roll up the entire Muslim line. The Muslim soldier fought back, but the pressure from the enemy kept growing. Khalid bin Walid quickly brought in his fast-moving army, known as the Mobile Guard, to help the right wing. He himself rode across the battlefield, shouting orders and encouraging the fighters. The scene was full of dust and confusion. Arrows rained down from above. The noise of swords, shields, and cries of the wounded filled the air. Even the Roman army pushing hard, the Muslims did not give up their position and managed to hold the line until the fighting slowed. Day 3. On the third day, Khalid bin Walid decided to change his strategy. Instead of only defending, he went on attack. He ordered the Muslim center led by Abu Ubaidah to keep the Roman center busy. At the same time, Khalid sent his army to strike the Roman left side, but then pulled back on purpose. This was a trick. The Roman commander Vahan thought his army was winning, but in reality Khalid was carefully setting up a trap for the coming days. On day 3, a tall, heavily armored Roman warrior rode forward, challenging the Muslims to single combat. Abu Ubaidah stepped out from the Muslim rank to accept. This fight was intense. Sword-clad shields splintered, and for a moment the battlefield fell silent as both armies watched. With steady skill and precise timing, Abu Ubaidah delivered a clean, decisive strike, sending the Roman crashing to the ground. The Muslim rank erupted in cheers, their morale soaring. Day 4. On this day, the Byzantines attacked with full force. Their Armenian army, Ghazanid allies, and Greek infantry all charged forward together. The Muslim line began to bend under the pressure. Both the right and the left flank were close to breaking. Roman soldiers shouted, "Push them into the ravine." Behind the Muslim army, women like Hind bint Utbah shouted encouragement, urging the men to not retreat. Some even fought with daggers, standing their ground. Seeing the danger, Khalid took a huge risk. He led a fast army charge, hitting the Roman left hard, then quickly returned to help stop their advance. By the 5th day, the fighting had taken a heavy toll on both sides. The Byzantines had failed to break the Muslim lines, and Khalid's tactics were wearing them down. Seeing their army exhausted and morale slipping, the Roman commander sent a message to Khalid proposing peace. But Khalid refused. He told them, "We did not come for peace on your terms. We came so that you accept Islam or pay the jizya or face the sword." His answer made it clear. The Muslims were determined to finish the battle. Before giving the answer, Khalid called a meeting of the general and informed them about the Roman peace offer. He asked for their opinion. Some commanders suggested accepting the offer, saying that it could save life and end the bloodshed. But Khalid bin Walid and Abu Ubaidah disagreed. They explained that the battle had just begun in their eyes. Until now, Khalid said, "We have only been defending, letting them tire themselves out. Their troops are exhausted, their morale is shaking. Now is the time for us to strike with our full strength." Abu Ubaidah nodded in agreement. The message of the Khalid was clear: no peace yet. The decisive attack was about to begin. Day 6. On the 6th day, before dawn, the Muslim army launched a fierce attack. Khalid bin Walid ordered his men to push forward with full strength. Sword clashed, shield broke, and the Roman began to feel the pressure. Then Khalid mounted his horse and rode along to the top of a hill in the east. Raising his sword high, he shouted, "Allahu Akbar." At that moment, from behind the hill, a massive cloud of dust appeared. Reinforcement had arrived. Around 6,000 fresh Arab fighters led by Ikrimah bin Abi Jahl and others had finally reached the battlefield. Khalid smiled and called out his troop. "Today is the day of decision. Either we win and live with honor, or we die and meet Allah." With the new forces joined, Khalid's mobile guard struck the Roman flank with lightning speed. The fresh fighter attacked alongside the main Muslim army, creating chaos in the Byzantine rank. Khalid and his army started crushing the Roman Empire. What the Romans didn't know was that Khalid had already sent a small, fast-moving detachment to secure the crossing at the Yarmouk River. When the Byzantine soldiers, in full panic, tried to retreat, they found the path blocked. That small force was attacked with fierce, pushing them back towards the main Muslim army, trapped between cliff swords and the roaring river. The Romans were crushed. Thousands were driven into deep ravines, many drowned in the swirling water of Yarmouk. By sunset, the battlefield belonged to the Muslims. Khalid closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of thanks to Allah. Then, opening them, he scanned the field and asked in a steady, commanding tone, "Where is Vahan?" Commander Vahan vanished. Some say he died in battle, others that he escaped in shame. The battlefield was silent. Crows circled overhead, bodies lay scattered across the rocky plain. Khalid stood beside Abu Ubaidah. Both men drained from days of relentless fighting. Islam had gained more than a victory. It had gained a land, Syria. Once the jewel of Eastern Roman Empire was now in Muslim hands. When the Emperor Heraclius heard the news, he is said to have wept. Farewell Syria, what a beautiful land and what a terrible loss. The battle of Yarmouk was over. Muslim losses were around 4,000. The Byzantine had lost tens of thousands. The course of history had changed forever, and this was the day Khalid bin Walid's name was carved deeper into the pages of history. After the crushing victory at Yarmouk, the mighty Roman Empire had been dealt a blow from which it would never fully recover. Hazrat Umar bin Khattab knew that Rome was no longer a serious threat. The Byzantine front was secured, but to the east another empire still stood tall, proud and defiant, the Persian Empire. For centuries, Persia had been a superpower, its king draped in silk and jewels, its armies feared across the world. They had already clashed with the Muslim in smaller encounters, but now Umar understood. The real test lay ahead. If Islam was to survive and spread, the Persian fire must be extinguished. And so the Khalifa turned his attention from the west to the east. But in the west, after the Battle of Yarmouk, the Muslim army under Khalid bin Walid and Abu Ubaidah gained a decisive victory against the Byzantine Empire. Following this, the Muslim advanced and captured Amasa, Homs, Syria peacefully. The Christian population of Amasa actually welcomed the Muslims because they treated them more fairly than the Byzantines. When the news of these victories reached Hazrat Umar bin Khattab, he instructed his commander not to advance further immediately. Instead, he ordered them to consolidate their position, secure Syria, and not to rush deeper into Byzantine territory. Hazrat Umar's strategy was always cautious. He focused on strengthening governance, ensuring supply lines, and maintaining stability before moving to the next stage of conquest. Roman Empire was not a threat now, but in the east, Persian Empire was a threat. So Umar bin Khattab turned his gaze from Syria to Iraq. The Persians had already tested the Muslim in earlier battles, sometimes winning, sometimes retreating. But now the time had come for a decisive clash. When the time came to face Persia, many companions thought Hazrat Umar would once again rely on Khalid bin Walid, the undefeated sword of Allah. But Umar made a deliberate decision. The Ummah must not depend on one man. If Khalid always led, no other commander would grow. So this time, Umar looked for someone else. Hazrat Umar knew if the Muslims were to confront them, an army unlike any before had to be raised. From Medina, Umar sent out messengers across Arabia, from Makkah to Taif, from Yemen to Najd, from Bedouin tribes scattered in the deserts. The call went out, come forward for the cause of Allah, for the time has come to face the Persians. Slowly, men began arriving in Medina. Veterans of Badr, Uhud and Khandaq came scared but unbroken. Young men from newly converted tribes came, eager to prove their faith. Families bid farewell to sons, fathers and brothers who would likely never return. But Umar knew the greatest question was not the size of army, it was the choice of the commander. Many people thought Khalid bin Walid would be the obvious choice. His name struck terror across empires. Yet Umar with his deep foresight made a decision that stunned many. He said, by Allah, we must not tie the victory of Islam to one man alone. If Khalid falls, will Islam fall with him? No. We must raise leaders from among the companions so that Ummah depends on Allah, not Khalid. At that very time, Saad bin Abi Waqqas, one of the earliest Muslims, quietly gathered around 1,000 men and prepared to march toward Iraq, even before the larger army was fully organized. This move caught Umar's eye. He was a man who had not waited for orders, but who understood the urgency and stepped forward. Saad bin Abi Waqqas was not ordinary soldier. He was the Prophet's close companion, one of the 10 promised paradise. and the first man to shoot an arrow in the defense of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ himself had once prayed for Saad, "O Allah, make his arrows shift and his aim true." When Umar saw Saad already leading a small force, already trusted by the man, his decision became clear. He summoned Saad and said to him, "O Saad, I appoint you over this army. Do not let your lineage to the Prophet ﷺ deceive you. For in the sight of Allah, no relation save a man except taqwa. Lead them with justice, humility and sincerity. Remember, your soldiers will watch your character more than your sword." With Saad's appointment as commander, Umar Radhiyallahu continued building the army. Reinforcements kept arriving until the Muslim force swelled to nearly 30,000 men. Saad organized them into disciplined ranks, drawing from the veteran of earlier battle to guide the newer recruits. Finally, when the preparations were complete, the army began its march eastward. As they left Medina, Umar Radhiyallahu himself walked beside them, instructing and reminding them, weeping at the thought of the danger ahead, but firm in his faith that Allah's promise was true. Thus, what began as 1,000 men under Saad's initiative became the army that would shape the very foundation of the Persian Empire at Qadisiyyah. But wait, let's go back. Why didn't the Khalifa of Islam himself join the battle and lead the army? This was the question whispered across Arabia when the drums of war against Persia began to beat. Umar bin Khattab was no ordinary leader. He was a warrior of Badr, a commander at Uhud, a man who had marched side by side with the messenger of Allah. If ever there was Khalifa who could lead from the front, it was Umar, and indeed Umar wanted to. When the threat of Persia loomed, he thought of leaving Medina and leading the army with his own hands. His presence, his voice, his sword, it would have struck terror into the heart of Persian and given courage to the Muslim soldier. But here lay the danger. The companions and advisors around him, especially Abdurrahman bin Auf and others, strongly opposed the idea. They reminded him, "O Amirul Mu'mineen, if you go and the Muslims are defeated, the entire Ummah will collapse. You are the leader of all Muslims. Your place is in Medina, holding the center, guiding the armies and protecting Islam from within. If you are killed, the unity of Islam will be lost." Hazrat Umar listened. His wisdom was greater than his pride. He realized that Islam was no longer a small community like in the days of Badr or Uhud. Now it was a vast empire stretching across Arabia and Syria. The Khalifa was not just a commander. He was beating heart of Ummah. If he fell, chaos would follow. So Umar made his hard choice. He would not go to Qadisiyyah himself. Instead, he appointed Saad bin Abi Waqqas as the supreme commander. Saad bin Abi Waqqas set out from Arabia with an army of 30,000 men, marching toward the heart of the Persian Empire. Following the orders of Khalifa Umar bin Khattab, he carefully chose position where the desert lands of Arabia were behind them and the Persian Empire stretched ahead, a location that gave the Muslim both security and courage. So they chose Qadisiyyah. But before the battle, Umar had given Hazrat Saad strict instruction: do not raise the sword until you invite them to Islam, just as the messenger of Allah, Hazrat Muhammad, always did. As per the Khalifa's instruction, the Muslim envoys marched straight into the grand palace of Ctesiphon, standing unshaken before the throne of Yazdigar, the mighty Persian king. Startled by their boldness, Yazdigar demanded, "Why have you come here? What gain is there in war between us?" One companion answered the unflinching courage, "We carry the message of Allah and His Messenger. Accept Islam or pay the jizya tax. Refuse and the sword will decide." The Persian court froze in disbelief. Desert Arabs standing in the very heart of their empire and speaking with such defiance, unimaginable. Yazdigar's fury erupted. He rose from his throne and thundered, "Go gather your army, for I will unleash the full might of Persian upon you. My greatest general Rustam will grind you into the dust at Qadisiyyah." To insult the Muslims further, the king called for a basket of Persian soil, placing it on the head of a companion. But after the envoys departed, an uneasy silence filled the court. One of the king's astrologers stepped forward and warned, "O king, this is no humiliation. The man who carried that soil has in truth carried Iraq itself." Meanwhile, in Medina, news of these threats reached Umar bin Khattab. The Khalifa wrote immediately to Saad, "Send me a complete map of Qadisiyyah. I want to know every corner of the battlefield as though I stand there myself." Saad obeyed. Umar's strategy was clear. He would direct the war step by step from the capital, following every move as if the clash were before his eyes. At the same time, Hazrat Umar sent fresh instruction to Abu Ubaidah in Syria, reminding him of the troop once commanded by Khalid bin Walid in Iraq, and ordered that these reinforcements be dispatched to Qadisiyyah. Saad bin Abi Waqqas faced a challenge beyond the battlefield: how to keep the Khalifa in Medina informed and how to coordinate with the Muslim forces in Syria under Abu Ubaidah. Saad himself was ill at the time, suffering from a painful disease in his back that forced him to command from a rooftop. Unable to ride for long, but his mind was sharp and his sense of responsibility unmatched. He knew that Umar in Medina would be pacing anxiously, praying day and night, waiting for news. So Saad established a messenger system. Rider were stationed at intervals all the way from Qadisiyyah to Medina like a chain of rally. A courier would gallop from the battlefield to the next port, deliver the update, and another rider would immediately carry it forward like passing a torch in a relay race. In this way, news of every day's fighting reached Umar in a matter of days, not weeks. At the same time, Saad coordinated with Abu Ubaidah, commander of the Syrian front. If Persia tried to call for help from the remnants of Romans, the Muslim in Syria would be ready. Messenger flowed back and forth, Qadisiyyah to Syria, Syria to Medina, and Medina back to battlefield. The system meant that while Saad commanded the army in Iraq, Umar commanded the war itself from Medina. The Khalifa would send back instruction, dua, and advice, which arrived as the soldiers were still fighting. It was as if the heart of the Ummah beat in Medina, but its arms were stretching across Syria and Iraq, striking in unison. And so, before a single sword was drawn at Qadisiyyah, the Muslim had already achieved something extraordinary: a network of discipline, faith, communication that the Persians, with all their power, could never imagine. For 3 long months, both the Muslim and Persian armies faced each other at Qadisiyyah without launching a strike, as the Muslims, learning from earlier experience, knew the deadly risk of crossing the river that separated them. This tense standoff created an atmosphere of suspense, with both sides waiting for the other to make a move, until the eventual outbreak of the decisive confrontation. November 16, 636, before dawn, Rustam, commander of the Persian army, made his move. On his order, a canal was filled and turned into a road. With this, the entire Persian force, 60,000 strong, crossed over ready to battle. Rustam himself wore 2 full suits of armor, determined to crush Muslims once and for all. Across the plain, 30,000 Muslim soldiers stood firm under the command of Saad bin Abi Waqqas. From his command post, Saad addressed the man with words meant to steal their heart. "The land is your inheritance, promised to you by Allah." The two armies stood brave, 500 meters apart. Silence hung in the air until the duel began. Champions from both sides stepped forward. Sword clashed, lances spears, and blood stained the battlefield. Each duel was meant to break the enemy spirit. Both Muslim and Persian lost many brave fighters in these brutal encounters. As the war finally began, Saad bin Abi Waqqas made a crucial decision to stop sending regular messages to Medina, declaring that from this point onward, everything would be decided on the battlefield itself, and the outcome of Qadisiyyah would speak louder than any report. reckless. He ordered his left wing to advance against the Muslim right. A storm of arrows filled the sky, followed by the thunder of Persian war elephant charging forward. The massive beast terrified the horses and the Muslim right began to falter. Before this battle, the Muslim had never seen war elephant, and their sudden appearance on the battlefield left them shocked and unprepared for the chaos these massive beasts could cause. Hazrat Saad sent urgent orders. Archers were to target the riders atop the elephant. Saad quickly sent reinforcements. Al-Qas led an army regiment that struck the Persian flank, while Zohra bin Hawaya reinforced the Muslim right with infantry under Hamal bin Malik. The counterattack worked. Trapped from front and side, the Persian left wing broke and fell back. Furious, Rustam hurled his right wing and center forward, once again led by elephant. This time the Muslims' left flank was struck with full force, their army almost collapsing under the pressure. At that critical moment, Saad turned to Asim bin Amr with one urgent order: bring down the elephants. The moment had come. The Muslim launched a counter-attack across the line. The Persian right and center staggered and fell back. By late afternoon, both armies were blooded and exhausted, but Saad gave final command. He unleashed the army in swift charges and retreats, the famous tactic designed to tear gaps in the enemy rank and keep the Persian under constant pressure. Day 2. On the second day, November 17th, the battle began the same way as before, the single duel, fighting to weaken the enemy's morale. Around midday, reinforcement finally arrived for the Muslims from Syria. The first to reach the battlefield was Al-Khattab bin Amr, one of the boldest commanders of Islam. He came with only a small advance guard, but he divided his men into groups and sent them forward one after another, making it seem as though a huge new army had joined the fight. This clever trick shook the confidence of the Persians. Seeing this, Rustam ordered a full-scale attack on Muslim line. Fierce fighting raged across the field. During this clash, Kaka is said to have killed Bahman Jaduya, the same Persian general who had once defeated the Muslim at the Battle of the Bridge. Unlike the first day, no elephants were used by the Persians, so Saad saw a chance to press forward. He ordered a general Muslim attack, and all four corps surged against the Persian front. The Persian resisted bravely, but Kaka used bold tactic. He disguised camels with cloth and armor to make them like strange beasts. When these monsters advanced, the Persian horses panicked and bolted, leaving their army scattered and their infantry exposed. Saad quickly ordered the Muslims to strike harder. Kaka, now acting almost as field commander, led a group of dual fighters, many of them veterans of Yarmouk, straight as at Rustam's position. Rustam himself rode out and tried to rally his troops, leading a personal counterattack. The fighting was intense, but neither side could break through. As night fell, both armies pulled back to their camp, exhausted, preparing for the third day. Day 3. On the third day, Rustam ordered his elephant to the front once again, and this time they caused even greater destruction among the Muslims. The elephant pushed deep into their lines and chaos spread. Horses panicked at the sight of the beasts, breaking the Muslim formation. Saad bin Abi Waqqas, who was directing the battle from his rooftop command post due to illness, realized that the elephant were the key to the Persian strength. He instructed the Muslim warrior to specially target the elephant eyes and the men controlling them. Brave companion like Kaka bin Amr and other advanced with spears, managing to blind some of the elephant, which caused them to panic and tremble their own men. Slowly, the Muslim began to neutralize the threat, and by the end of the day, most of the elephants were killed or driven away. They lifted Muslim morale and balanced the battlefield once again. Day 4. The sun rose over the plain of Qadisiyyah, its lighting piercing through the dust and smoke of 3 days of brutal fighting. Both armies stood exhausted yet unbroken. On one side, the Persian, commanded by Rustam, still had their elephants and heavy army lined up for one last desperate push. On the other side, Saad bin Abi Waqqas, still confined to his rooftop due to illness, ordered his men to prepare for the final all-out clash. He knew this day would decide the fate of Persia. Rustam, the Persian general, mounted on his throne-like platform behind the lines, urged his soldiers to fight to the death. He reminded them that the Persian Empire's survival rested on this day. His word inspired many, and once again the elephant were brought forward to break the Muslim rank. But this time, the Muslims were ready. They had learned from the previous days that the elephant were the core of Persian strength. On the third day, Saad ordered the archer and infantry specially target the elephant eyes, and similarly on the fourth day as well. Others were instructed to cut the straps of the wooden tower on the elephant back. The Muslim also used a brilliant psychological trick. Some camel were dressed in strange covering. As arrow rained down, many elephants were blind, panicked, and trampled their own soldiers. The Persian lines began to break. Without the elephant to shield, the heavy Persian army and suddenly looked vulnerable. The Muslim cheered, sensing that victory was near. Amidst the chaos, Rustam was struck by fate. As the fighting raged, a Muslim warrior named Hilal bin Khulafa managed to slip through the lines. He spotted Rustam sitting on his throne, shielded by soldiers. A sudden blow of chance occurred when a strong gust of wind overturned Rustam's tent and throne. Rustam tried to escape, but Hilal caught him and struck him down. The Persian commander fell, and with him the spirit of the Persian army also collapsed. When the news spread that Rustam was dead, panic spread through the Persian ranks. Soldiers who had fought bravely for 3 days now began to flee. Some tried to cross the river behind them, but drowned in the rush. Others were cut down where they stood. The Persian army, once feared across the world, was broken. From his rooftop, Saad bin Abi Waqqas saw the battlefield clear. After 4 days of fierce fighting, the thousands of dead bodies on both sides, the Muslims stood victorious. He praised Allah and declared that the Persian Empire back had been broken at Qadisiyyah. Back in Medina, Hazrat Umar was deeply worried about the outcome of Qadisiyyah. Every day he would walk far outside the city and sit by the roadside leading from Iraq, waiting restlessly for any messenger to arrive. The people of Medina often saw their Khalifa pacing, praying, and looking into distance, his heart tied to the battlefield where the fate of Islam against the Persian Empire was being decided. When the battlefield ended in a decisive Muslim victory, Hazrat Saad sent a messenger, a young man named Abu Mahajan, to Medina. The messenger rode day and night until he reached Medina. Hazrat Umar was as usual sitting by the roadside outside the city waiting with a heart full of prayers. When the rider appeared from afar, Umar immediately rushed toward him, unable to contain his anxiety. As soon as the messenger shouted, "Allah has granted us victory, Rustam is dead, and the Persian army has been crushed," Hazrat Umar fell to the ground in prostration, tears streaming down his face. He then stood up, raised his hand to the sky, and praised Allah with a trembling voice. Soon after, the news spread across Medina, and people came out from their homes rejoicing. The street filled with takbirat, Allahu Akbar, and the atmosphere of the city turned into one of the gratitude and celebration for the great victory that changed the destiny of the Muslims Ummah. The dust of Qadisiyyah had finally settled. Rustam, the mighty general of Persia, was no more, and the empire that once shook the world had begun to tremble before the banner of Islam. In Medina, Hazrat Umar fell into sajda upon hearing the news, thanking Allah for the victory, not for power or land, but for the rise of truth over injustice. This was not just a battle, it was the turning point of history. Jerusalem, Palestine, a city unlike any other on earth, a city that had witnessed prophets, kings, emperors, and conquerors, a city whose stones carry the weight of thousands of years of history, tears, and prayers. To the Jewish, it was the city of King David and the Temple of Solomon. To Christian, it was the city of Jesus Christ, where he was crucified, buried. And to the Muslim, it is the blessed land of Al-Aqsa, the first Qibla, the blessed land mentioned in the Quran, the place of Isra and Miraj, the night journey of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The name Jerusalem itself has carried many meanings through time. In ancient texts, it was called Jerusalem, meaning city of peace. But this city has never seen any peace at all. For centuries, Jerusalem had been fought over. The Babylonians had destroyed, the Persians had ruled it, Alexander Greeks marched upon it, the Romans rebuilt it in their own image, and the Byzantines made it a Christian stronghold. Yet the city never lost its scared aura. By the early 7th century, Jerusalem stood under the flag of the Eastern Roman, the Byzantine Empire. Its churches shone, its pride spread, and its walls guarded centuries for devotion. But change was coming from the deserts of Arabia. A new faith, a new light was spreading: Islam. When Khalifa Umar bin Khattab took leadership in 634 AD, Islam was no longer confined to the sands of Hijaz. It was moving like a tide into the land of empires. Under his leadership, the Muslims faced the two superpowers of the age, the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire. At Yarmouk in 636 AD, the Muslims achieved one of their most decisive victory against the Byzantine Empire. Muslims also crushed Persian Empire at the Battle of Qadisiyyah, which I already explained in my previous video. Go watch that. The siege of Jerusalem began with a difficult decision. Abu Ubaidah, the commander of Muslim forces, gathered his general to decide the army's next move. Some argued they should march toward the coastal city of Syria, a powerful Byzantine stronghold. Others insisted that Jerusalem, the sacred city, was the true prize. Unsure, Abu Ubaidah wrote to Khalifa Omar in Medina asking for guidance. Omar's reply was short but decisive: march to Jerusalem. So, in November 636, the Muslim army advanced toward the holy city. Khalid bin Walid, the sword of Allah, led the vanguard with his fast-moving army, clearing the way. Amr bin As secured the surrounding routes, ensuring no reinforcement could reach the city. Inside Jerusalem, Sophronius, the Christian spiritual leader, prepared for the inevitable. He ordered the city's most sacred relics, including the true cross, to be secretly taken to Constantinople for safekeeping. The city's defenses was formidable. Its massive stone wall had been strengthened by Emperor Heraclius after he had taken the city from the Persians just 10 years earlier. But Sophronius knew the truth. No help would come. The Byzantine Empire was already broken after its defeat at Yarmouk. Jerusalem stood alone, and so the siege began. The Muslim army surrounded Jerusalem, but strangely, they did not attack. City walls stood tall and the soldiers were ready, yet no assault was ordered. Why? Why would a victorious army wait in silence? The answer lies deep in the history of this holy city, a city beloved not only to the Jewish and Christians, but also to the Muslim, for it was the land of the prophets. Hazrat Ibrahim, Hazrat Dawood, Hazrat Suleiman, Hazrat Musa, and of course Hazrat Isa. It was a holy city for Islam as well, because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had prayed toward Jerusalem before the Qibla was changed to the Kaaba, and from here the Prophet ﷺ ascended to the heavens in Isra al-Miraj. So instead of storming it with bloodshed, the Muslims respected the sanctity of city. Hazrat Umar and the Sahaba understood that this city must not be taken with force, but through peace and justice. That's why they laid a calm siege around Jerusalem, cutting supplies but avoiding unnecessary destruction, until the Christian Sophronius agreed to surrender. Finally, Sophronius made a decision. He sent word to Muslim commanders. Jerusalem was ready to surrender, but only on one condition. The city would give its key not to a general, not to any soldier, but only to the Khalifa himself, Umar bin Khattab. Muslim journal Abu Ubaidah first tried to avoid troubling the Khalifa. He thought maybe the demand could be solved another way. Since Khalid bin Walid looked somewhat like Umar, he was sent toward the city walls, pretending to be the Khalifa. But Sophronius was not deceived. He either recognized Khalid from before or had been informed by Arab Christian about Umar's true appearance. The plan failed and the Sophronius firmly refused to hand over the city. At last, Abu Ubaidah had no choice. He wrote a letter to Medina saying, "O Amirul Mu'mineen, the people of Jerusalem will only surrender to you in person." When the letter from Abu Ubaidah reached Medina, Umar bin Khattab gathered his shura, the council of the Sahaba. The news was clear. Sophronius would not hand over the city except to the Khalifa himself. The gathering grew tense. Some companion advised, "O Amirul Mu'mineen, your presence in the battlefield region is dangerous. If you travel and something happens to you, the entire Muslim Ummah will be shaken. Send Khalid or Abu Ubaidah instead." Others added, "The enemy may have planned this as a trick to lure you out." But Hazrat Ali, with his wisdom, spoke differently. "O Umar, this is not a trap. This is an opportunity that Allah has written for you. The Christians want to see with their own eyes the justice of Islam. If you go, it will be a testimony that Islam does not conquer with pride, but with humility and truth." Umar remained silent for a while, then looked at his general letter again. The decision was made. Umar would go himself. But his journey would be unlike any king or emperor. No guards, no golden thorn, no silk garments. He set out with only one servant and one camel. They shared the animal turn by turn. One rode while the other walked. Umar carried no pomp, only patched clothes and heart firm with tawakkul. As Umar approached Palestine, the Muslim general who had conquered vast territories rushed to receive him, but when they appeared before him, Umar's eyes narrowed. The general were wearing fine silk robes, beautiful weapons, and rich ornaments that reflected their victories to the world. They looked mighty conqueror, but to Umar they looked dangerously close to forgetting their roots. With fire in his eyes, Umar rebuked them. "Have you forgotten who you are? Have you forgotten what brought us here? We were the most humiliated of people, and Allah raised us with Islam. If you seek honor in anything other than Islam, Allah will disgrace you again." The general embraced, lowered their heads. Umar reminded them that leadership was not about outward glory, but about justice, humility, and obedience to Allah. Khalifa Umar entered Jerusalem. The city gates opened, and the Sophronius came forward to meet him. The people of Jerusalem had imagined a great emperor covered in armor riding a powerful horse, but to their surprise, they saw a humble man in plain clothes walking on foot while his servant rode the camel. Many whispered among themselves, asking, "Which one is the Khalifa?" They could not believe that the ruler of such a vast empire looked so simple. On that holy land, Umar signed a peace agreement with Sophronius, later known as Covenant of Umar. According to this pact, Christians and Jews were promised safety for their lives, homes, and churches. In return, they would pay a small tax called jizya. Unlike previous conquerors, Umar showed great wisdom and restraint. When Sophronius invited him to pray inside the church of the Holy Sepulchre, Umar refused. He said, "If I pray here, later Muslim might take this church and turn it into a mosque." Instead, he prayed outside, and that very spot later became the Mosque of Umar. This showed his vision. Jerusalem would remain a city open for all faiths. For the Jewish community, this was a moment of freedom. After hundreds of years of Roman and Byzantine bans, Umar allowed them to return and live once again in their holy city. Umar stayed in Jerusalem for 10 days. He visited many holy places, and when he saw the Temple Mount filled with ruins and trash, he helped clean it with his own hand. There he ordered a simple wooden mosque to be built. Later, decades after him, the Umayyad Khalifa Abdul Malik would construct the beautiful Dome of the Rock on that same site, a monument that still shines over Jerusalem today. This surrender of Jerusalem was different from so many before. There was no bloodshed, no looting, no massacre. For the first time in centuries, the holy city was protected and respected. Under Muslim rule, it became a place of coexistence until centuries later, the Crusaders would break this peace in 1099. But in 637, a new chapter history began, a chapter written not with war and cruelty, but with humility, justice and faith. Omar bin Khattab proved that a conqueror can also be a guardian. The fall of Jerusalem to Muslim was not just the end of Byzantine rule, it was the start of a new era. The city of Prophet, which had seen endless wars, now witnessed a peaceful conquest. Umar did not enter as a tyrant, but as a servant of God, fulfilling the prophecy of Muhammad that one day Jerusalem would be under Muslim rule. And so the city bowed its head, not to power or greed, but to justice, an event that truly changed the course of history forever. The fall of Jerusalem in 637 was not just a change of rulers, it was a moment that shaped history forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, leave your thoughts in comments and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories from history. Thank you.